have always, throughout history, seen this as so valuable. Jerusalem is to the east. It's on a hill. It's difficult to conquer. And it has very little value since there's no roads that go through Jerusalem. It's just a capital city in the hills that isn't worth the trouble. So for years, that's why the south fell so much later than the northern tribes, is because it had very little economic or strategic value. And so they were sitting there relatively safe, but knowing that it's just a matter of time before Assyria and then later Babylon just comes and just takes this whole territory as their own and gets rid of this troublesome little conclave of a couple tribes of the remnant of Israel. So they knew their time was coming. So in Isaiah chapter 2 comes the vision that starts the book that frames the rest of it. It's a vision that's meant to give hope. So imagine you are hearing a prophet, somebody that's acknowledged to be from God. You're told he has a message of hope. You hope that message is similar to the message given to Moses to deliver God's people from Egypt. You hope it's similar to the message of Joshua that said you're going to be safely occupy this land. It's not, but it's better. This is what Isaiah says in chapter 2, verse 1 through 5. This is what Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all the nations will stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Come, descendants of Jacob, let us walk in the light of the Lord." This is the word of the Lord. So what is the function of this part of Isaiah? It's to give people hope. It is like seeing, any of you, and this is a church, we don't judge here. Anybody read the last chapter of a book before they read the rest of it? Okay, we got a couple of people here. Thank you for your vulnerability. And the reason you do that, the instinctive reason that you do that is because of the anxiety of reading up to that final page. I want to know that everything's going to be okay. I want to see how they get there. You know, there's a lot of movies where you start with the last scene. A lot of TV shows really do this a lot, where it's the scene of the show, and then you start at the beginning to build your way there. So what Isaiah is building towards, what history is building towards, is what the vision that Isaiah just told us. And it's a vision meant to instill and inspire hope. How important is hope to a people? Scale 1 to 10. There's a book that I would recommend. It's called Radical Hope: Ethics in the Face of Cultural Devastation. It's by Jonathan Lear. It tells the story of Plenty Coups, who was the last great chief of the Crow Nation. It's a tribe in Montana. The Plenty Coups, in the middle of the 19th century, had a vision of other foreigners coming and occupying the land, and so he ended up siding with the white settlers, and because of that, his people were given a place to live. They were given a land that was their own. And what he writes, what Plenty Coups wrote in the story of his people, he has this line that I want to read to you and just let it settle into you, and then explain a little bit about where it comes from. "When the buffalo went away, the hearts of my people fell to the ground, and they could not lift them up again. After this, nothing happened." He says, after the last buffalo died, nothing happened. And so, in the book Radical Hope, read into the history of the Crow Nation, and what he found was that the Crow Nation was defined primarily by three distinctives. One, The Crow Nation were warriors. And when I say they were warriors, I meant the women fought alongside the men, and that children from a very young age were trained up to be warriors. They were known for their fierce battles. Two, they were nomadic. They would move around in Montana into Wyoming and had a nomadic pattern, so that part of what it meant to be Crow meant we don't put roots down. We move in this rhythm of staying for a season, uprooting, and then moving to hunt the third part, the buffalo. The buffalo was central to their identity. They were hunters of the buffalo. Then, once they were given a reservation to live on, they were told, one, this is your land, but when you travel beyond the boundaries of this land, you go into other people's personal private property. And there's federal laws against that. Two, you are no longer warriors. When you go to war against the Kiowa tribe, we consider that murder, and you will also find that the U.S. Army is fighting with them because we have come to bring peace to this land. So two of the three identity markers of who the Crow Nation were changed when they settled down and put roots down. And when the last buffalo died, after that, nothing happened. And what Lear writes about in his book as an ethicist is you cannot build ethical, right behavior without a vision of the good life. And when all that was attached to the Crow Nation's identity was taken from them, they lost the image of, well, what is a good life now? There is no direction. So that when he says, when the last buffalo died, after that, nothing happened. This vision is given to Israel because there is an after that coming for them. After the temple, after the land, after all that formed and united them as a people was taken from them, what then? That's what this passage identifies. And there's three key parts in this that I want to just walk through that identify what's next after that. One, God will be exalted, that the mountain of God will be exalted above all the other hills, leading to judgment. And after judgment comes reconciliation. So, and the order is important. One, God exalted above all the other gods. Two, him acting as judge. Three, a lasting peace. So let's go through first piece by piece. One is the poetic image of the altar of God, the temple of God, being exalted above all the other hills. As you probably know, when ancient tribes would build temples to their gods, when they'd make sacrifice, they do it in high places, that they would find the highest nearby hill or mountain to build an altar on, so that you ascended to that to make your sacrifices to appease the gods, whether it be the God of Israel, Baal, the gods of Assyria, Babylon, Greece, Rome, whatever it is. They always built those on high places. That it's a way of showing honor. You go up to it. It's a way of saying, we're going to meet you in the middle. We're going to get as high as we can up to you, having this cosmology where we're here in the earth, the gods are in the heavens up here. So the mountain, obviously, is the place where we would meet those gods. And so what the vision Isaiah has is a vision of God, the mountain of God, Zion, the temple of the living God, being exalted above all the other gods. It's a poetic way of saying that God wins an ultimate victory over all the other gods. That in the end, all the nations, and the verb that Isaiah chooses into is will stream to the God of Israel. Now, this is an absurd vision. This is a tiny nation that fractured in half to get tinier and is about to be swept aside by the greatest empire that the world had ever seen, Babylon. What audacity to go into exile with their gods defeated, everything taken from the temple into the gods of Babylon, temple destroyed, and the people forced to move away from Jerusalem, away from the temple. And yet, knowing all this is going to happen, and Isaiah knew it was going to happen, he told his people this is coming. Still, the promise is God will still be exalted. Everything coming after that is going to make it look like you're going to be assimilated, you're going to be forgotten in the pages of history, that you are going to become Babylonians, life will go on, and you'll all be forgotten. But the promise is the God of Israel will still keep his promises. And the image in this passage is of an attractional force, the nations being drawn to God. It's not an image of a conquering God with wiping the blood off his sword, saying, I've destroyed all my enemies, I've made the carcasses of the gods that thought they were up to me are surrounding me, and now I'm subjugating all the people of the world. My faithful get preferential treatment. Those who honored me, those who are on the right side of religious history, they get special privileges. And the others come to me begging for mercy. That is not the image. And it's important to pause here and ask the question, how does the imagination, formed in proper worship of God, shaped when the final image is not of God's victory through violence, but through winning people's hearts? People willfully streaming to God for the purpose of being reconciled with God and with one another. That the final image is of a God whose victory is a victory of the hearts. And it makes sense. God is love. God is attractional in wanting to draw people in so that they can experience and know that love. And the second part that happens as people are coming is God coming as judge. That's the literal words that are used there, that they come to God to arbitrate for them, to bring them to make judgments, to stand as judge. And we don't love the word judge, you know? People get don't judge me tattooed on their bodies, which is strange take, strange thing to put on your body. No judgment, ironically. A little bit of judgment. But let me ask it this way. Do you want to know the truth about yourself? Do you want to know where you're right? Do you want to know who you are deep down? Do you want somebody with the authority to say, this is who you are? This is what is true and good and beautiful in the world. That part of that drawing to God is saying, God, you are the one who tells us what is true, good, and beautiful. You are the one who says what is right and what is wrong. And what you have in this vision is people who are yearning for that truth. Tell us. And what happens after that judgment is reconciliation. That's the purpose of it. That the nations are coming together and that God is brokering peace between them. That he is the one they're saying, you tell us who is right, who's wrong. And basically hearing a little bit of both, you're right, you're wrong, you're here. And arbitrating between them. You have in this final image is an image of peace, of the nations streaming together to receive from God truth. In 1995, after the Rwandan genocide, and in 1997, after the unification of South Africa and the end of apartheid, there was a time when, in both places, they held what Desmond Tutu called Ministries of Truth and Reconciliation. And it was a time where people could come and speak the truth freely. And if you've ever listened to any of those, where people just tell their stories of the ways that they were harmed and abused, their families separated, what it was like to live in apartheid in a ghetto, and all the ways that injustice was reinforced, and people were told that they were less than. And Rwanda, of course, with the genocide between the two tribes. In order to broker peace, there's essentially either reconciliation through killing all the bad guys, or reconciliation through the image that we have here of Isaiah, of saying what is true so that peoples can be reconciled to each other. We've had instances of it in Canada with Indigenous people, here within Indigenous people, and owning up to our history and legacy of slavery, and of saying we need to speak the truth so that we can be healed. There is no reconciliation without truth being told. That is a simple fact. And you know this to be true. You have broken relationships, don't you? Yeah, we all do. It's okay. Count me among those with a broken relationship. Part of why relationships remain broken is because one side refuses to acknowledge, or one or both, at least one side, refuses to acknowledge what is true and what happened. And without acknowledging and naming what is true and what happened, there is no possibility for reconciliation. You can't, how many of you have said, actually, John, I can bear witness to the power of sweeping it under the rug and not thinking about it anymore. I can bear witness to the raw power of denial. I was part of my privilege of pastoring in two different churches is I'm part of two different pastor groups in town here. And Redlands is unusual in the sense that I have true friendships with other pastors in town. Really, really important friendships to me and places to gather. Next week alone, I have 2 coffee dates with local pastors where we're just going to share together and enjoy one another's company. And there is one person who is somewhat provocative in town. Some of you may know who he is. I'm not going to say his name right now, but I will affirm if you ask me after the worship service. Loves to provoke. And, he said in one of our gatherings, I hear a lot of sermons and a lot of talk on the need to forgive other people, how hard it is to forgive. What do we do when we can't forgive? He says, I don't hear any sermons on how to apologize. I don't hear any sermons exegeting how to say, I am sorry and I need your forgiveness. And there's 2 things to note about that. One is when we talk endlessly about how hard it is to forgive and how we need to forgive, who holds onto the power? And 2, maybe we need to talk a lot about forgiveness because we never talk about apologizing. And what happens in this moment is apology, of acknowledging past sins, of saying, that was me, and I'm sorry. That with judgment comes necessarily in the form of truth-telling, of saying what is true and what is real. And out of that, coming through the God of Israel, the God of Jacob, reconciliation between the nations. This is true on a global scale through history of all the injustice and evil done through warfare and subjugation and slavery and all the different forms that we take to create different tiers of people that we value or undervalue them. All the systems that we create to keep people down, being named, reconciled, so that real peace can come. And the image at the end that is so beautiful is of swords being reformed and remade into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks, warfare technology being reformed and repurposed into tools that fundamentally are used to bless your neighbor. Think about the different ways that swords versus plowshares build community. Think about how different it is to show up at your neighbor's door with a sword than it is with a shovel coming to help. I encourage you to find Jeff Wallnoffer after this worship service. He has a story about somebody showing up with a sword. That is one of the greatest stories I've ever heard in my life. 10 years ago, to this day, almost that happened. I'll remind him of that story too. It's a great story. I'm not going to tell it on the podcast. But think about the different ways, the function, how different a sword is functioning in a community than a plowshare. And think about a world where the tools of war are relics from the past, because whatever it was that led us to war is gone. We've been reconciled. And now all that is left are, honestly, this is a vision that seems like an evolution of Genesis 1 and 2. Created to flourish in a good world and to provide food for one another. That the final image is of what God's intent has always been: proper worship of him, not eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but receiving that knowledge directly from God and being in a right relationship with God, one another, and the world. Advent is for people who long for that world. Advent is for people who look backwards at Christ as the one who inaugurated that. Advent is a season of anticipation where we look forward to God completing that work and bringing this vision to its full completeness. So again, I ask you, what is provoked in your imagination from this text? Not from a text of God coming in, owning his enemies, decimating, killing them, subjugating them, but of God in the end winning the hearts and minds of his people, bringing in peace through that, so that all of our intelligence and technologies are used to bless one another. This passage has been part of Advent because Jesus has come to us as our Prince of Peace and will come again. This is what Jesus says in John chapter 12. I want you to listen to this text and see how it maps onto Isaiah's vision in chapter 2. Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No. It was for this very reason I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven, I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again. The crowd that was there heard it and said it thundered. Others said an angel had spoken to him. Jesus says that voice was for your benefit, not mine. Now is the time for judgment on this world. Now the prince of the world will be driven out. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself. He said this to show the kind of death he was going to die. That the lifting up prophesied in Isaiah took the form of a cross. That God was lifted above all other gods. And Christ says, I was exalted and lifted up, that all might be drawn to me. That all might find their peace in me through my sacrifice. So as we begin Advent, as we begin this season of anticipation, we come to the table. We come to the table with the body broken for us, the cup, a new covenant for the forgiveness of sins, the table of reconciliation that draws all to it, that we might come, exalt Christ, receive from him what is true, be reconciled with each other, so that the peace may come and we might live finally in the peace that is promised to us. Come to the table this morning. Let me pray as I bless us as we go. Father, we come today to receive communion from you. We come to find the peace we seek in you. May you be exalted up. May you draw all peoples to yourself. May you heal the nations so that we might live in a peace that can only come from you. As we come to the table, we do so repenting, saying that our hands are dirty. We have been part of the problems of this world. Forgive us. Teach us to seek the forgiveness of others, that your reconciliation might flow through our lives. Bless us that we might be a blessing. We ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Come to the table.